So now we're going to keep those equal signs lined up from here on out. And we need to ask ourselves, how are we going to change this into tangent? Well, there's a couple things we could do. If you think about those strategies, one of them said try changing everything to sines and cosines. So this one's already a sine. How can we change secant of x into a sine or a cosine? Well, hopefully you guys are thinking of that reciprocal identity. So let's go ahead and try changing secant using the reciprocal identity. So that's going to be 1 over cosine of x. And over here in parentheses, you're going to write reciprocal, and that's it. So we've manipulated it. It's still equal. And now we're going to go on to our next step. So we can see we have something times a fraction. So let's go ahead and multiply across the top and bottom. And we'll have sine of x over cosine of x. And for your reason, just put multiply fractions. So hopefully you guys are kind of seeing what's happening here. Sine over cosine, well, that's another one of our identities, the quotient identity, and sine over cosine equals tangent of x, which was what we wanted. So once you get what you want, go ahead and put a little box filled in, and your proof is done. So that was a multiplication identity. Now let's try a division identity. So say we have tangent of x times cosine of x all over sine of x equal to 1. We're going to underline the problem, and I know that seems tedious, but it really does help you see what's happening, and it helps me grade. So tangent of x times cosine of x all over sine of x. We wanted to choose that more complicated side, and now we're going to try to boil it all down to just equal 1. So again, our biggest piece of advice is to change everything to sines and cosines. And in the beginning, that'll probably be the thing that comes the quickest to you. There's many ways to solve this. So some of you may be thinking of other ways. In fact, I encourage that. If you think of a different way, why don't you share that in class on Monday, and we can kind of talk about that. But we're going to just start with changing everything to sines and cosines. So these already are. Let's change tangent. Okay, let's change tangent to sine of x over cosine of x using our quotient identity. So we've got a fraction within a fraction, but don't let it freak you out. This cosine is over 1, so that's what we've got going on up top, and we're going to keep the sine of x in the bottom. Don't forget to write your reason. Our reason here for what we changed was the quotient identity. All right. So now, hopefully you guys are thinking a little bit ahead of me. If you look at the top here, something can happen. When we look at these fractions and just forget about the bottom, we can see that we have a cosine in the denominator, cosine in the numerator, they cancel. So now we have sine over 1, which is just sine of x. So we have sine of x over sine of x. The reason for that is, well, we call it the cancellation property, but I'm just going to write cancel. And then from here we can cancel again, and we get 1. Another thing that you can write is simplify. You can write cancel, you can write simplify, and once you get what you want, you draw a little box. The hardest part about these is until you develop a natural sense for verifying identities, it's going to be hard to know, what do I do next? Well, you don't know. You just play. And you play enough that you start to remember patterns. Okay, it's just like any puzzle. The Rubik's Cube, people can do it crazy fast because they memorize the patterns that solve it. And that's the way these identities are. So in the next video, I know this is a long lesson, but in the next video, we'll we're going to work with adding and subtracting identities, and then we'll be done for this weekend.